Hi, I'm Pilots, and in this video I'm going to show you how to create a 3D printable articulate dragon using Blender 3D. I'll cover how to design the body joints, add details and create the moving legs, head and a tail piece that progressively gets smaller and smaller. But before we get started, I just want to thank Cheto System for sponsoring this video. More on that later on. Tap into Blender, click A, delete to delete the default setup, Shift A and add a sphere, R90 X to rotate the sphere 90 degrees around the x-axis, click enter, tap into edit mode, and then select half of the sphere, like this, delete it, delete the vertices, select the outer ring, and then click E, hold down Control, and pull the edge out about here. Go into the modifier tab, add the solidify modifier, and make the thickness about 0.25. and apply this modifier. Move the sphere up a bit by holding down Control as well. And I want it to be positioned here. Shift A, add a plane. This plane is going to be where the printer bit is, so everything down here is going to be flat. And that's making surface area like an even surface area, so everything's printed properly. Anyway, tap the body part as the sphere is going to be. Go into sculpting mode. And click this X here to make the model mirror around the x-axis. As you can see, if I draw anything on one side, it also happens over the other side. Okay, as you can see here, my keybinds ain't really showing, so I'm gonna tell you 3 commands you're gonna use throughout the video in sculpting mode. The first one is Shift. If you hold down Shift, as you can see here, everything is getting smoother. And that's very useful to make things smoother. The next one is if you hold down Control, right? So now I'm not holding down Control. As you can see, everything is like popping out a bit. However, if I hold down Control, now everything is reversed, so it's inverting the tool, right? And yeah, I think that was the 2 most important one. A last one that I'm also using sometimes is F. And if you click F, you can make the cursor smaller, well, bigger or smaller, and it can be used to, like, if you want to select more at once, pretty much. Okay, so let's get into sculpting. The first thing I'm going to do is remesh the model. Gonna make it 0.03, like this. Remeshing is making the quality much better. However, if you remesh it too much, it might make Blender lag quite a lot, so be careful, but a smaller number is generally a better result. Okay, click remesh and we'll start sculpting. So I'm going to select this tool, I'm going to make my cursor about this size, and then I'm going to start making kind of like an M or W shape here, like this, both in the top and in the bottom here, by dragging the middle part out and pulling the, well, these part, I don't know, like kind of side a bit in. And you also want to pull the side here out a bit to cover up. So this part here is where the details would be, so therefore we want them to cover this part a bit, pulling it out like kind of like here, pulling this bit in. Okay. Afterwards, you also want to pull the sides a bit down to make more surface area. Here it can be easier to have a bigger cursor. Just like more at once. And make sure that this middle part is not going too much, like too far down below the plane here. So this should be about enough, I think. Also take the sides and pull them out a bit. This makes the part easier to articulate later on. If you make it a bit more like pointy. And take the front and drag it in a bit. Kind of like this. Make sure, if you can see, there's still like a wall here. When you're about happy with the result, I think this is fine, I guess. Gonna smooth it out a bit though. But no, when you're happy with how it looks, and have smoothing out a bit, tap back to layout mode and click Shift A to add a torus, and R90 Y to, again, rotate it, but around the y-axis this time. This is going to be one of the connection points, right? Because the body parts are kind of like joints, so you want this to be on one side of the joint and then have another side of the joint over here. So go into edit mode and select half of the torus here and delete the vertices. And you also want to select these outer lines here and click F to close them up, as you can see here. And then E to make them longer. This part doesn't really matter how long you make them because we're going to change it afterwards. Okay, then move the torus up and make it a bit smaller, kind of like this. You kind of want this edge to align with this edge over here. So this one is going to be aligned here. And the middle of this edge is going to be aligned about the green line. Right? So kind of like... Next thing you're going to do, go back into edit mode, select this line here, click on this icon or click O, and then click G to move it. Also, if you hold down the mouse wheel, you can see I can change the direction I'm dragging it. So I'm going to drag it with the y-axis. I'm going to make it kind of like go about E. If you scroll on your mouse wheel, you make the circle there you saw smaller or bigger depending on what you want, right? I'm also going to drag the edges here one by one a bit in, like this, and make it a bit smaller. I kind of want them to get covered in the line, well, the wall here between, so it's a bit more invisible when you look at it. Gonna do the same here. Kind of like this. I think this should be fine. As you can see with my model here right now, right, it's a bit thicker here. So what you can do is click Alt and then click on the line to select the whole circle and do the same thing here by clicking Shift and then Alt to select both at the same time and then scale it down a wee bit. I think that should be a bit better. Okay, then select the body joint and then add the Boolean modifier. This is a modifier we're going to use a lot in the future, so remember this modifier is very important. Okay, click on Union and Float and select the torus and then apply and hide the torus here by clicking H or click the icon here. Anyway, select the joint, go to Sculpting, Remesh, and take and hold down Shift to smoothing it out a bit. You don't want, again, this wall here to get too thin. So what you can do is use this tool and make it a bit thicker. Kind of like this. Right now I'm holding down Shift to smoothing out the curvature here. Yeah. When you have about this shape and or whatever you want, right? Whatever you think is nice looking, you want to go back to layout mode and add another torus, and then go into edit mode and select this part again. Click delete, select the edges, click F, click E, and drag it out a bit like here. Then make it a bit smaller and move it over to the front. Back into edit mode, click A and then Shift S, well not Shift S, Alt S to change the thickness, right? So we want this thickness to be about here. I think this is fine. Make it a bit smaller and then move it a bit up. Right here. I think this should be lovely. This should be lovely. Okay, select the edges and move them in like this. Okay. Select the body joint and select the boolean modifier, sorry. Click onion, float, and select the tourist. As you can see now, before you click apply, we have pretty much a finished joint. However, what you might not have been thinking about is the fact that we can't print this, right? This is floating in midair, so how do we fix that? So start up, click on the screen to hide the modifier, and then click on the tourist, right? And then select this, about this much of the tourist, right? And move it a bit down, right? You can also select these loops here, move them a bit down. It's fine if it gets a bit of curvature here, because we're just gonna fix that, but kind of make the not particularly 45 degree, but a bit of a degree here, right? It's got a PhD degree or something like that. I think this should be lovely, right? Okay. Back into, we'll select the body joint again, go back into modifier tab, select the screen, and now click apply. Okay. Go into sculpting mode, remesh, and start smoothing it out a bit again. Start dragging this part a bit up right here, like that, and smoothing it out. You also want to use this flat tool to make it a bit flatter in here, because there's no need for it to be circular. Will be around here, as that would just make it harder to articulate using more material, so that doesn't really make sense, right? So just start smoothing it out a bit and use the flatten tool to make it a bit flatter in here. Okay, when you have that done nicely, use the tool again here to make that degree there, that angle, that lovely angle. Yeah, when you have something that looks about this, you want to flatten the front a bit on both sides and make it a bit more pointy like this. And then you have a fully functional body joint. I recommend now to Shift D to add another body joint and drag it out so it looks like it's not touching, and then pop into your slicer to make sure the two joints are not touching. As you can see right here, they will be touching, so I am dragging this part out a bit and kind of like this. And then perhaps now print it. I already know what I'm looking for, so instead I will quickly make some few changes here. I'll drag this part in a bit right here. So we'll kind of make a bit more of a curvature shape there. It's not too thin, is it? No, it's not. Okay, kind of like that. I think that should be nice. And now you can see we have pretty much a functional body joint. If you want to test it, which I highly recommend you do, you need to select the body joint, click Shift D and add another joint, and make sure they're not touching anywhere, these two joints, right? To drag it around a bit, kind of like this. As you can see, nothing is touching, and then print this. The reason why I'm recommending to do this is because if there's any mistakes, anything that doesn't articulate properly, you have to change that later on, which means you destroy all the details you will be making later on. So please go test this. To 3D print this, you need to select both items and then go into Edit, here, Preferences, Extensions, and then add this extension called 3D Print Toolbox, and then go to Add-ons just to make sure it is there, this tool, right? And when you have done that, if you click N, it will be down here, the toolbox, right? And you can click where you want the file to get saved and then export. And then you have an XTL. The reason why we're doing it this way compared to just click File and then Export is because if you do it this way, it will export everything in this scene, including the plane. We don't want that. We just want the two joints. So do this method instead. That's just easier. The next thing you need to do is, for crying out loud, remember to save your files. If you don't save them and you lose them, too bad. Blender is not sorry. I think there is like an autosave thing up here. Recovery rate doesn't work all the time. So just remember to save your files. Right. The next thing you're going to do is start working on the tutorials. So first of all, Shift D, the body joint, and click H to hide it. Now you have a copy if you're not happy with the details, right? Go into sculpting and we'll start making the details. I'm not going to make the prettiest details right now because I don't have much time, because you're watching and you don't want to watch me doing details for like 3 hours straight. So what I like to start with anyway is to make kind of like shape like this. This is a bit like drag and scale. And then I can start working on the scale from the other side afterwards. Another thing that could be nice to do is turn on this called a stroke, and then the stabilize stroke, which means that everything gets easier to draw like a straight line. You can also edit the strength if you want something like to be more visible or less visible, depending on what you're doing. But yeah, I'm just gonna make some quick details and you can do whatever you want. Just gonna start making the scale here a bit more pointy. And I like this. And then I am going to draw on some scale. Here I'm going to hold down Control because, as you can see, this tool is already inverted and it's just that as standard. You can also edit it here. However, I like to just hold down Control. So let me do that. Also turning on the stabilizing stroke. And remeshing it a bit to make it, to make the details easier to make. You can always revert the remesh later on. It's just sometimes nice for it to not be as blocky, if you get what I mean. And now is the perfect time to talk about today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Chitter System, a fantastic company for all you 3D printing enthusiasts out there. Not only are they behind the program Chitterbox, but they also sell high quality filament for every imaginable project out there. I've been using that filament for over a year now, and I'm not planning to stop anytime soon. All my latest projects, including my articulated crocodile, ocean dragon, and remastered ice dragon, has all been printed using that filament. If you're looking for a top-notch filament and want to help me create more projects in the future, be sure to check them out through the link in my description. And thank you again to Chitter System for making all my projects possible. It means a lot to me. You also want to make the details quite visible, as if you make them too smooth you can't see it on the final print. So sometimes it might look a bit too much. However, it's looking so much nicer when you do it on the actual, well, when you see it on the actual print, right? So just keep that in mind, that it does need to look perfect because so many details will be lost when you print the model. And yes, I am doing this with a mouse. You can also do it with a drawing pad, but it's not needed. You can be an artist in Blender without a drawing pad. I have had lots of people asking me about drawing pads, being like, do you have to have a drawing pad? Well, you don't. I do have one, I never use it. Only if I have to like sign something. Okay. I think this is about what I'm doing with the details. I think that looks quite nice. Okay. For the top, as you can see in lots of my dragons, I usually have like a type of spike or something like that. And yes, you can just make it by dragging up a bit, but as you can see, everything moves. So what I like to do instead is to take this tool here and then draw where I want the spike. Let's say we want the spike about here. Draw it that size you want it as well. Maybe I want a bit more triangle. And then click A and then invert match, invert mask. There we go. And now I can't draw here. I can only draw in the mask, right? And I usually use the dragging tool, and then I drag the mask up. Use something. Click remesh. Just make the general shape, not all the details yet, but just like the general shape, kind of like this. Click A. Well, hold down A and then clear mask to clear the mask. And now I can move it freely, but I will also be moving everything else if I'm not careful. I'm gonna make it a bit more spiky, a bit more pointy. And I can do this as many times as I want, so I can select this tool again, make another mask, and then hold down A, invert mask, and then make another spiky thing. Like that. And then A, clear mask. Starting to make it a bit more smooth. And remember to Control S, save your. I also like to define the shape of the spikes, right? With this too, and make like circles around them, so you can see where's the spike at. It gives it like a nice contrast. And I also sometimes take and hold Control down with this tool and make like lines up like this to again define the shape. I think this looks very nice. I think I'm just gonna add a scale here, and that should be pretty much it with the details. Like that. That looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Okay. I think that's me done with the details. So go back into layout mode, Shift D. Remember to also save your creation throughout the process. So if you do something, you don't lose the details you made along the way. Click H to hide it, and well, now you're done with the details. The next part of the video is to make legs. And the reason why we're making legs is because otherwise it will be a snake. You can't change my mind. Dragons have legs, I don't care. So what you're going to do is to select the body part here, Shift D, hide that part, and then again click on it, Shift D, and you want it backed out a bit. You kind of want the pattern to line up a bit because these two parts are going to be connected. The reason why is because often there's not space enough for the joint. If you're making moving legs, which we are in this video, in my last video I did not make moving legs, and well, there's not hard to make moving legs, it just looks cooler, right? Okay, before we connect these two parts, you kind of want the details to line up better, so go into sculpting, and then we'll start making the details line up as you want them to. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to look a bit nice. Right, so something like this should be fine. And then what you can actually do is you can click on this dot over here. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, usually you can click on the dots here, right? And it changes what you're sculpting, right? So I also like to make the spike here a bit smaller. Like this. I think this should be just fine. Again, click the dot there. Then adjust the other thing until you're happy, right? When you're happy with the result, you actually need to go back into sculpting mode and you need to remove this because this is not working, right? You can also use a Boolean modifier if you know how to remove it. I think that might actually be easier to deal with this part, but for this part here, it's just easy to just use a tool like this and just drag it in there, right? Okay, let's use a Boolean modifier to remove this, right? So add as something, right? Just add a sphere, I suppose. And we actually still want it to be centered. Everything needs to be symmetrical. Change my mind. Kind of like that. There, right? Select the joint you want the Boolean effect to affect. Click on the Boolean, click float, select the sphere, and height it just to make sure everything is nicely done. It is. And then apply. Go to sculpting mode, remesh, and just nicely do something like this, right? Okay. Next thing you want to do is to make sure there's no air bubbles in here. What you can also do sometimes is to add a sphere and make the sphere go between the two joints and then also use the Boolean effect on that. So there's no air bubbles really. Because this is so nicely lined up, I don't think we'll be needing the sphere right now. So I'm just going to go directly to the Boolean modifier, union float, select the other one, and then H, and then lie. Go into sculpting mode and remesh. I think this is nicely done. You see? Okay, it doesn't really look like there's that much air in it. And that's a good sign. If there's air in it, you'd also like to use, again, the sphere in between the two joints to make them perfectly line up. Great. But because there's no need for doing that right now, I'm not going to show it, unfortunately. Because, again, there's no need. Well, I suppose just do the details nicely, like this. I think this looks nice. I am ready to move on. Shift D, just to save a copy, and then make the other one. Make it into a collection, call it legs. New collection, there we go. Legs. And hide the new collection. Okay, the next thing is to make the actual legs and not just the leg joint. So add a sphere and go into edit mode. Move the sphere up a bit, just like this, and then go into sculpting mode and start dragging it out a bit. Here I like to remesh it quite a lot. I suppose so it looks smoother and it's easier to work with. So every time I've dragged it out a bit, I use the remesh tool, right? I kind of want to make like an elbow or knee, or what you want to call it here. So I am moving one side in a bit, one side out a bit. And then also down a bit, just like this. And again, remesh. I hope this is not too confusing. If it is, well, I'm sorry. It's a long time since last I've made a dragon, but I mean, it has been like 2 years in the make of the tutorial. So, all the videos I had recorded for the tutorial that I've been promising for, again, 2 years, well, the Blender version is way too outdated for that, so I had to record a new one. And because I am stressed about out with my university commitments, I can't really sit down and make a very high quality tutorial. So therefore you're getting me doing this in real time, so it can be out quicker and I can make up for my promise. And then you might not see me in a long time on this YouTube channel, because again, I need to do things with my university. But hopefully, well, you learn a lot from this tutorial, and there'll be no need for me to come back to teach more. I don't know. Well, it depends how well this video does. If it gets 100,000 views, I will come back and make how to make a cute little creature video. So, if you want me back, hit that like button, and I'll see what I can do. Okay. As you can see, the overall shape of the arm coming out a bit. I have started shaping the foot over here. There'll be toes here, right? So you kind of need to make like a, I don't know what you call this shape, kind of make it a bit whiter in the end, like here, right? If you get what I mean. And then the elbow, you kind of want it to get a bit more pointy. And what can help with making the illusion of it being pointy is use this tool and then drag a bit down here, right? Like that. With this tool, I think that's also a nice tool. Yeah, there we go. I also like to do a bit of muscles, right? So I have a bit of a bicep there. I don't know if you can see it a bit, like here. Make like a line go down like that. With this tool. And then like tricep over here. As you can see, I don't know how muscles look, but I like the idea of it actually having a bit of a muscle, right? It makes it look less like a toy and a bit more like a sculpture. But you don't want the muscles to be too white, because otherwise it's gonna have a hard time with the articulating part. Something like this, that should be fine, right? And then I also like to make like the bone structure back in the arm or the leg, depending on what you call it. And drag a few strings in like that. You can kind of see you have like a bone here and then a bone going a bit up like that. You can also make a spike on the elbow. I am not doing that. But if you want to, you can always do that later on. Okay. Before you finish the leg completely, you kind of want to make this sort of shape. Let me just show you with a drawing, right? So you kind of want to make like a D shape here. There'll be a pole going through the arm about here. So for it to be better articulating, you kind of want it to be a bit more straight down here, and then have a bit of a flat curvature over here, going like that. Let's see if I can show it properly. Like this. So a bit flatter on the other side. And a bit flatter here, right? And when you go down here, you want to make it again a bit flatter here. Now you have kind of like the D shape as well here, right? As you can see. kind of like this. And then I like to use one of these tools, this one, and this one, in the edges here to make it rounded a bit downwards. Like this. Right. I think this looks pretty solid, right? Okay, now to the arm. I like to use the masking tool again and make a mask, probably a bit smaller, like this, and then make the individual claws, right? I think I'm actually just going to start with one and drag it out. Measure. Like that. And then make another one. Another one bites the dust. And then the last one. I think dragons personally has 3 claws. If you wanted to have more than 3 claws, well, make more than 3 claws, I suppose. You can also make details on the arm, like the scale or something like that. I personally don't really do that because I don't want way too many details on my dragons. Even though I do make lots of details, I think sometimes it can get a bit too much. So I like to keep it simple. I also like to define the claws like I did with the spikes with using a tool like this. Going around like this here. And then doing the same with holding down Control to make a bit more popping out. Potentially it could have an extra claw there. Like a thumb. But I am not going to do that right now. Okay, now you have the lovely arm, right? Or leg, I suppose. What you want to do now is click M and then click on the leg collection. And then add a Boolean modifier, click float, and then take the plane as the reference. Click on the plane, go into edit mode, and then E and extrude it down a bit like this. And then apply the modifier. As you can see now, it is completely flat underneath, which is what we want. I'm going to drag it out a bit, kind of like this. I think it's needs to get a bit smaller. And sitting here, I think that would be lovely. Okay. I would like it a bit taller though. So what I'm going to do is actually to go into edit mode here and select the bottom plate here, if I can find it. I think it's that one there. Okay, and then click E. Even though we just removed the underside or underneath this part, right underneath the leg, even though we just removed it with a Boolean modifier, if you start editing on it, you want to have something underneath the printer bed reference again, because otherwise it's not going to get completely flat, and when you then print it, it's just going to float midair. We don't want that. So go back into sculpting, and I would like it to be a bit taller here. I'm going to remeasure. And the reason why I'm making it a bit taller here is because there needs to go like a cylinder or something like that all the way through, and therefore it needs to be a bit thicker, even though I just made it flatter. it can be nice to use the body part as a reference while you're making the arm as well. Like right now, I think the arm is a bit too much to the side, so I'd like it a bit like this to bend a bit more inwards, like that. I think this should be fine. Yes, okay. The next thing I want to do is to add a cube. I'm gonna take the cube and I am going to scale it down, move it to the side here, so it covers all of the arm, and like the end of the arm, right? And I'm gonna click tab to go into edit mode, and then I am going to select this corner here, and actually also the corners here, and the corners here, and then I need to click Control B. As you can see, it's making a bevel. We're actually going to reselect this one. Deselect it, so there we go. Not so this one. So Control B, making a bevel, and you use your scrolling wheel to make it more or less beveled, like make more or less entities. So about something like this, right? That should be fine. And then I like to select these two ends here and click S and then Y, and make sure that you have clicked O so that circle is there, right? If you haven't clicked O, you need to do it before you start changing something, right? But yeah, S and then Y, make it a bit whiter, kind of like this. I think this is actually a bit too white. Like that. Okay, and then again, make it sure it covers up the end of the leg. Like this. Okay, next thing is to take the cover thing and the leg and place it directly where you want it to get placed. You need to make sure that the leg here is not going over this line here. So it needs to actually get a bit further out, kind of like somewhere like here perhaps. You can also turn it a bit. Like this, right? Then you need to add a cylinder and rotate it. Yeah, down a bit. And move it over to the leg, scale it down. Make it longer by clicking S and then the direction you want to make it longer. Like the y-axis. And then you need to kind of follow the angle of the leg cap. Let's just call it that. The leg cap here, right? So rotate it so it fits the angle-ish. And then place it. Also make sure this cylinder is touching body part on both sides, right? So right now it's not. I will actually like to move everything a bit further in, right? So let's move it a bit further up and then a bit further in, like this. I think that should be better. Just a wee bit. Okay. I think this should be fine. Okay, select the body part, add the boolean, different float, select this part here, right? The leg cap. Select the leg cap itself, add the modifier called mirror, and as the mirror object, choose the body joint here, and then click H. Now you can see there is some space where it has been removed. I think we could actually go a bit further in. Just find the leg cap. There we go, the cube there. Let's just see. Like this. It's very thin now though, be a hole here. It should be alright. I do like this a bit better than before, because now there's actual space for the leg to rotate. I would also like it to go a bit further up so we don't have this 90-degree angle, but we have like an 45-degree angle. So let's select the cube again, the leg cap, and then select this top here, and then click G, set, and drag it a bit upwards. H. I think that should be better. Okay, let's drag the leg a bit in. Like that. That's a mistake, sorry. I think that should be fine, right? Select the cylinder, Shift D, S, make it a bit bigger. I think this should be an alright size difference. Okay, for some reason my computer stopped recording, but what has happened is I have applied the modifier on the leg rate. What I'm doing now is I am adding a mirror modifier. I'm pretty sure I did that in the last clip as well. And I am using the body joint here as the mirror object. Then I'm taking the cylinder here, clicking Shift D, and then S and scaling it up a bit, just about this, and then selecting the leg, boolean, load, fusing the cylinder, clicking H, and as you can see now there is a hole around the cylinder here. What I also like to do is to make sure that the cylinder is touching at both sides. That is very important, right? Okay, the next thing I'm doing is I am selecting the leg and then mirror, then adding the object here again as the mirror, and then selecting the joint here, apply the Boolean effect, add in a new Boolean effect, float, actually not float, well it is float I need to use, and then union instead of differences. Select the cylinder here and click apply and hide the cylinder. Then go into sculpting mode, remesh, making sure just quickly it is on both sides. It is. And I like to then use this tool here to kind of make it look like part of the details. As you can see, I kind of want this cylinder to go into the scale here so it looks a bit more realistic and less chaotic, if you get what I mean. Yes, and then I also like to redefine these details, but it looks nicely done really. And I'm also doing the same in the front here, using this tool. As you can see here, there will be a gap with space in between here. I just quickly saw that, so I'm just gonna drag this part a bit down. But anyway, go back to the cylinder here, just makes it a bit more connected, and then smoothing out the sides here to make it more printable. Like that. I think that looks nicely done now. And now you have officially legs. Just apply this modifier and apply this one. Take the joint here and add the Boolean modifier. Select the plane, float, apply. Just hide it for a quick minute. There you go. I will now be making the head. So the first thing I'll do is hide the legs, show the plane, add a sphere, move the sphere up a bit, go into sculpting mode, select mirror, and start dragging it out a bit, the head. So we want a bit of a longer shape, kind of like this, and then a bit flat on the top. Okay, so this is like the overall head shape. Then I like to define the eyebrows, right? A dragon has very curly eyebrows, so I'm using this tool firstly to kind of make this shape. Right, let us remesh it a bit more. And this tool here, kind of like define the eyebrows. Like that. The nostrils a bit. And then make it a bit like curvy towards the nose. Kind of like a crocodile, right? You know that crocodile goes in a bit and then they go out a bit with the nose. So yeah, you could perhaps look up some reference photos if you want. I like to just like wing it. To be fair, I have done it quite a lot of times, making a dragon hat. What I'm doing now is kind of make the jaw right, like that. Then I make the eye socket. Then I'll make, again, a little bit wider up in the face here, like that. Now we really have the jaw muscles, right? You can kind of see this line going up here. I want to define that a bit more. That is the mouth, right? You can make teeth as well, perhaps with the Boolean modifier afterwards if you want to make teeth. You can also, if you want to, make a movable jaw. I haven't gotten down that route yet, so I will not be showcasing that as I do not really know how to do it properly right now. But there might be some references out there on the internet if you want to do that. But yeah, as you can see, I kind of like define the shape of the head. I would like the nose though to go a bit further out, maybe. No, actually not. I also tend to not make the nostrils here, but make like a nose there, right? So I think I will be doing that actually. So if you just want a simple dragon, just make the nostrils here now. However, I will now be showing you how you can make a nose like my designs tend to have. So that actually, to make that, you need to start making a bit smaller towards the end of the face. And then bump here, right? I know it kind of looks like Rudolph right now, but you will get better soon. Then you need to like make like a V shape down here, right? And then make space for the nostrils there. And then like that. Like that. There we have a nose. I think the face is almost there. We just need some eyes and some horns. So for the horns, again, use the masking technique and put some dots, kind of like this. Also, make sure there's still some space here to the back, because the face needs to also be able to articulate. And to do that, we actually need to make like a shape going in like that, but that would be made later on, right? So just make sure you don't put the details all the way out to the back yet, right? So make the shape there for the horns, invert the mask, and we'll pull the horns out. I think this looks lovely. Kind of looks like a cat right now, not gonna lie. Again, I like to define the shape of the horns as well, like that. Can make them go a bit forward like that. Maybe not. I think this looks lovely, right? Very good overall shape, right? So I've actually, before going out and add the eyes, I will make the back a bit more flat with this tool here, right? Just make a big circle and start flattening it. I think this is fine. Yeah, this looks lovely. Okay. So to add the eyes, right? Shift A, add a sphere. Rotate the sphere 90 degrees around the x-axis. Go to edit mode. Double click A to deselect everything, or you can just click a random point out here, right? Click C, make the circle here a bit bigger by scrolling in the mouse wheel. Select about this much, maybe actually only this much here. You decide, right? Click delete purchases. Actually, delete faces. 2. Select the outer ring. Click F. Click E and drag it in a bit. Select the outer edge. Click Control B and do something like this, right? Can actually perhaps take this edge and pull it a bit further in, like this, right? Now we have a nice looking eye. What you can always do is click I and then E and then Control B to make a pupil, right? Click R, X, not X, Z, right? to rotate the eye a bit out. And then drag the eye, make it a bit smaller, and put it in the eye socket-ish, or where you think the eye socket should be. Yeah, perhaps, right? Maybe a bit further in. Select the eye, add a mirror effect. Select the head as the mirror object. Select the head, click on sculpting. Use this tool to kind of make the eye socket a bit bigger, and then start using tools like this to, actually this tool, right, to kind of like make the eyelid and the eye socket. It might look very ugly in the start. But it kind of like helps shaping the eyelids properly. These eyes might actually have had way too big pupils, sorry. But I think I'm just gonna work with it. Can't be bothered to redo them. However, you can if you want to. As you can see, I also like to add like a line here, right? Kind of to make the eye look a bit more, well, like an eye. You know how we humans do not have completely round eyes when you look at them, right? Well, of course our eyeballs are round, right? But our eyelids are not round. They kind of make this double D shape, if you get what I mean. So I am trying to shape that a bit here, like this. I think this looks lovely. I think that should be it. And then you need to add a sphere. And then scale it down a bit. I think this should cover it. This is going to be where we connect the head to the other joints. So something like this should be lovely. Select the boolean tool. Click on the sphere. Apply. Go into sculpting mode. Select remesh. And kind of smoothing it out about right. Like we did with the body joint, I like to also make this shape go out a bit like this to kind of like hide the connection point, right? And then like we did with the legs, kind of like define where the end of the head is. Like that, right? I think that looks lovely. Very lovely. Very lovely. Kind of like that, right? Add a torus and rotate it. Off of it. And delete that whole. And do the same with the edges, clicking F and then E. And then scale it down a bit. As we have done lots of times now. Like the loop going vertical. I think this is the loop. Then drag it in a bit, kind of like this. Here, as you can see, we also want this part to get moved a bit up. Like this. Choose this part. Select the Boolean modifier, float, onion, object, select the torus, apply, hide the torus, click on the eyes, click on the head, Control P, object, keep transforming. Now you can see if I move the head right, everything moves together. Then add a Boolean modifier, select float, select the floor, apply, right? Now we have a lovely head, right? Okay, so what I like to do now is to add some more details to the head to make it look more incredible and more alive. Right now it's a bit bland, if you get what I mean, like a bit dull looking, right? So I'm gonna add some lines. I think I'm gonna do like that. Kind of like some waves in the head. And then some lines here. Also like to make the mouth a bit clearer with this tool. Maybe use the stabilizing stroke. In this tab here, right, you can turn on the stabilizing stroke. Go like, kind of like that. Kind of like this so far. Also gonna define the horns a bit better. Also be aware that details on the top of the head sometimes cannot be seen on the final model due to the fact that the printer is printing in layers. So be careful with making too like minor details where you can't properly see them. You need to make like something that's a bit bigger. Gonna just like make some spikes kind of up here instead of the waves. Okay. And yeah, I think I should pretty much be there by now. I think I'm gonna make some, again, more like defined shapes on the horns, kind of like this. Then I'm gonna smooth them down a bit so they're not quite straight, but a bit more like wavy. Like this. And then I am also gonna make the back of the head shape a bit more like spiky, more like scale. Kind of like this. We still want to keep that M shape here though. So this should be lovely. Just add like a spike here as well. Like that. So nice. And then details in here would look lovely as well. Of course, you can add teeth, or you can like make teeth afterwards. With like the same way we made eyes, right? Where you make a shape and then you use the Boolean modifier afterwards, but I am just gonna leave it like this here because I can't be bothered. I think this looks lovely, right? So now when I am done with the design, so I'm just gonna remesh it a last time. Just gonna redefine the nose quickly, and I should be going. Like that. I think that looks lovely. So you can see it kind of looks less dull and more detailed now than it did before, right? You can always also move this down a wee bit to make it less like, what can you say, less like a square. I know this is not a square, but it doesn't have that many edges. If you like keep it up like that, kind of have more edges and look less natural. So I like to put it down a bit here in the front, like that. I think that looks incredible. I'm just gonna make sure that the pupils is free of anything, like so you can't see the eyebrows through the pupils. I can't say that word, so don't mind me. Okay, so now I have the face. Before moving on to the tail, I'd like to just first of all rename the head to head, and then put it in a folder called what do you want to call it? Let's call it like body parts, I suppose. Like that. Because then we can actually find the body part again without having to search through all these spheres, as I am going to do when finding the body part, so that's not thought through. Okay, I'm also going to move the heads into that folder. Like that. The next thing I want to do is I want to add another sphere and move the sphere up. Like maybe like that. Maybe down a wee bit. And then this is going to be the tail, so let's go into sculpting. Remember to turn on the mirror and then start shaping the tail as you'd like. Oh, that was the wrong way. There we go. So I like to make it a long shape like that, make it a bit more flat at the top, and then go to the top view and make it a bit thinner, like this. You want to keep it like quite flat here in the sides, due to the fact that this also needs to be able to articulate. So keep it flat and make the edge here, right? Instead of being this rounded, you also want to make it a bit more flat. Like that. Let's remeasure. Yeah. When you have this overall shape, you can start making some of the details on it. So let's remeasure again. Get like 0.0. Let's say 0.05. Okay. I also like to smooth everything out before I really start making the details, and you can do whatever you want. You can make spikes as you did with the head, right, when we made the horns, or you can just like make whatever. I'm gonna make some spikes on it as well. So again, I like to redefine the spike shapes. I'm gonna put the remesh down a bit, so like 0.3. and then use the classic tool here to move a bit more around. Maybe this tool as well. Kind of like this. Then I'm going to first of all smooth the spikes out a bit, and then use this tool to kind of like make some lines on them so they don't look as dull but a bit more sharp, if you get what I mean. Like that. I think this looks incredible. You also want to make sure that you don't get too much overhang here, because then you're gonna have a hard time to print it later on. So when you do like make the model, keep in mind that everything is going to be printed in place, and support is quite awful to use with these dragons, especially if you don't block the support often. It will put support between the joints, and then it's not going to be able to articulate. So keep it quite simple and limit overhang as much as possible. And for the details on the tail, I think I'm just going to make some stripe, as I did kind of on the head as well. You can of course make scale if you want to make scale. I can't be bothered right now, so also because it takes quite a long time to make scales, and you already seen me make it. Making it. So if you want to make scale, you can just pop back in the video if you can't remember quite how you made it. Otherwise, you can do whatever you want to make, because of course it's your design. So I kind of like this right now. Okay, so when you're happy with how the tail looks, what you should do is go back into layout mode and then add the torus, and again select half of it like this and delete it. Oh. That's the wrong one. Delete vertices. And click F again and extrude the two ends. So what's happening? Okay, there we go. And then click Alt S to make it a bit thicker, like this, and move the torus up to the right place. I think this should do alright. Okay. Yeah, what you can also do is to take one of the body parts. I think it's Thea. There we go. Oh no, it's not that. Otherwise it's like sphere 2. Okay, take the body part and rotate it to the right angle, and then test to see like where the torus should be. I think maybe tail should maybe be a bit taller. Move it up a bit like this. And see, where do we want this to be? It should probably be about here. We're also going to scale the body part here down a bit more when it comes to it, but just like have a look and see where does it fit. This tail might be a bit too short at the moment, so I'm just gonna make it a bit taller like this, and let's see if it fits better now. Yeah, that should be it. So I'm gonna hide the body part again. And then I am going to add the boolean modifier. And remember to click union and click the torus and fly and hide the torus. And then let's go back into sculpting mode, remeasure. And again, now as you can see, there's lots of overhang. We kind of want to make the overhang less. Well, pretty much just make the overhang less, yes. So you could also go into edit mode before you apply the modifier to move it a bit down. But I also like to just sometimes just sculpt it, especially because we want this hole actually to be a bit wider. Otherwise it might cause problems later on. So let's just like smooth it out a bit, kind of like this. Make the bridge down. Remember to remesh sometimes, so you get some new material to work on, and the surfaces are more distributed properly. Is it called distributed? Probably not, but you get what I mean, right? It's like it's more even if you get it. English is not my first language, as you might be able to hear. So if there's something in the video that just doesn't make sense, well, that might be the reason why. Well, I am trying my best though. Okay, so I am making torus a bit thinner here and a bit more like straight down in the hole in the middle. Yeah, right. Especially because if this hole, right, had a curve on the inside, it would make it challenging to place it properly compared to the body part, so it might attach to the body part. Another strategy you can also do, right? Remember when we made the leg joint, where we put two joints together? That's also a tactic, is to place a body joint on the end of the tail and then just like kind of merge them together. That is also a strategy. I do that sometimes, but not that often, not gonna lie. Usually just because I forget that's an option. But it is, if you don't want to reshape this entire part and make the chain link, right? It's like the easiest way to avoid that. What I'm also doing now is I'm making go in a bit here in the body joint as well. Again, to make it better at articulating later on. Okay. So this looks nicely now. As you can see, it's a bit more than a 45-degree angle, but give or take, it's pretty alright, not gonna lie. If we put the floor back on the plane, right, as you can see, this part doesn't touch the ground, which is amazing. If it touches the ground, it can be a bit challenging to make the articulation part, especially placing it, right? So if you go in a bit like this should be pretty good. Also, as you did with the arms, right, the legs, you can also like redefine the bottom here so it gets a bit more curvy in. Let me see this tool. Oh, this tool here, right? So shape it in a wee bit, kind of like that. But that's if you like, it's not necessary. The last thing I'm going to do is make the front here a bit more like, what can you call it? Going a bit more in, right, to like one edge instead of it being too wide, to make it a bit thinner here. Kind of like that, right? That should be good enough. Alright. Okay, now you have everything finished, so we can start assembling the dragon, right? You have the tail, you have the body parts, you have the legs, and you have the head. So first of all, go rename your tail, and then move it to the body part folder, right? The next thing you want to do is you want to find the right joint. I think it's this one. Yes, let's just call it joint, right? And you also want to move it to the body parts folder, right? Let's scale the plane up a bit. Okay, unhide everything here, and then click H on each the different things, right? So you only have the body joint. The next thing you want to do is you want, first of all, to make sure that the 3D cursor, by clicking on view, right, that is all, the location is 0, the rotation is 0 as well. Next thing you're gonna do is you take the body joint here and move it out a bit, just kind of like this maybe. And then right click and click set origin and then 3D cursor. And now as you can see, if I rotate the joint, it's rotating around the 3D cursor. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you're going to add the array modifier here. And since last I did this, there is now in the middle here like a tab where you can edit pretty much, right? So usually I would just add an empty in the middle, but now it has an empty here. So first of all, set everything to 0. And then if you go up to the top, you can drag this around. As you can see now, there's coming a few joints right here. So make sure they don't touch. If they do touch, you can also edit a bit with clicking on this one and dragging them out a wee bit, just kind of like this. Then you can add a few more, kind of like this, right? I think that looks pretty damn cool. Control S just to save it. Okay. Then take the legs, right, and Shift D and hide that. So you want 2 pair of legs, right? So first of all, move these legs out. Make sure it doesn't touch. Like that. And then we want a pair of legs there as well. Just gonna unhide this. Oh, just like kind of like this. And then move that out as well. And then take this part here, Control C, Control V, or Shift D if you want. And then move that out a wee bit as well. I think I'm gonna make it pretty long. Let's put it right here. So now we have the body here, right? Then go up to the tab here, unhide the head and the eyes. And before you start moving the head, because we removed the bottom of the head, as you can see there, it's flat, right? You want to also make sure that the origin is the 3D cursor. And then you want to rotate it, perhaps scale a bit up. And then move it to the right place. If the 3D cursor is not all the way down at the plane, it will make a gap here that you have to fix afterwards to make everything plain, like everything leveled. So therefore it's just easier to make it the same height as the 3D cursor. So now we have the head, we have the body parts, now it's time for the tail. The last thing that is needed on the dragon is pretty much making the tail. Last time I made the tutorial, I made the tail smaller in sections, so it's like 3 body joints, then it was 3 smaller body joints and so on. However, I have found a way to do it continuously. So select this joint again, and then Shift D and rotate it, just ish. Then go into this tab here, the shape, click transform. Then as for the scale rate, you want to type 0.9, let's say 8. You can play a bit around with this. This is pretty much like how smaller is it continuously getting, right? And then you want to play with either these settings or drag the arrows here to make them line up again, right? The reason why I'm using transform instead of line is because otherwise the space between every joint will continuously get smaller. So therefore I kind of have to use the transform shape, right? And then make it longer as long as you really want to. You can make it like 15 long, 10 long, whatever floats your boat, pretty much. And then take the tail, unheight it, select it, and yeah, move it over, put it in like that. You're also going to move it a bit further down towards the ground. Okay, we are almost finished. The last thing we need to do is to make the drag and the rail scale, and of course remove everything on the plane. So first of all, go into the scene tab here, then make sure the unit system is metric. In the unit scale, type 0.01, and then make the length millimeters feet. Then click on the plane, click N. Then in here you can make the plane the right dimensions, and you want to make it pretty much as big as your printer plate, so you have an idea of how big the drag input can be, right? So type in maybe about 250. Lots of printers are 25 centimeters in the printer bed, right? So do that. Then go up here, in these tabs here, go from global to cursor and 3D cursor here, right? And then select everything, like select the whole dragon, deselect the plane, and then scale it up. Kinda like, I think this should be enough. Kinda like this, right? Remember to save, by the way. Okay, the next thing you want to do is select everything here. Go into the modifiers tab. There we go. And then choose boolean. You can always move the boolean up here and then hide the array just to make Blender less laggy. Select float, select the plane, and click apply, and then unhide it, right? Just do that for everything. Hide the plane here, select the entire dragon, click N, and then go into the 3D print tab you made earlier, and we'll find a place where you want it to get exported to, right? And then click export, and you're done. If you do have issues with the design, like it can't really be loaded because it's too high quality, you can always go into modifier tab and then choose the one called remesh, right? What you need to be like looking out for is that remesh always needs to be above array, because otherwise everything would just clump together as here. So put it over array and then put it down to like 0.07, or that's not enough, like if you want a higher resolution, 0.05, and so on, just so it looks kind of like this, right? But that's only if it lacks too much. I'm just quickly gonna do it. I usually do it because I have had a bit of trouble. So yeah, just do that for everything. For the arms, there's a little life hack here. You just select both of them, right, and click Ctrl L, and then link modifier, copy modifiers here, right, and then you're just gonna apply it on both. Then you don't have to type in the data on both. And there you go. So just select it all again, and then export it. Pop into your slicer, the slicer you usually use, and then go and drag your file in. Like this, right? And then take and slice it. When it's finished slicing, go and look every layer through, right? Make sure nothing is touching. Let's go from the bottom up. Look at the legs, anything on the legs touching. Here, no, it doesn't look like that. Go on the joints, see there's nothing touching there, and there. That is perfect. Nothing touching, no. Go over here as well. Nothing is touching. That is just perfect. And also go make sure that all the different joints are visible in the printing plate, right? And if everything looks perfect, well, then you have a finished design. And I think you should be proud of yourself because that's pretty impressive. Go ahead and print it, and well, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.